He did it for Paul, He can do it for you. Remember, all it takes is one touch of God's favor. One person putting in the right word for you at the right time, you'll go to a whole new level. One person introducing you to their friend, and all of a sudden you met the man or woman of your dreams. Just one Barnabas coming across your path to say, hey, let me use my influence. Now all these other doors open up. I don't know about you, but I'm believing for some Barnabases in my life. People that will want to help me. People that will open up doors that would not have normally been opened. When God gives you a Barnabas, when He gives you one touch of His favor, that'll do more in a split second than you could do in your whole lifetime. I was reading about Billy Graham. Back in 1949, he was a young minister, traveling the country, holding meetings in large auditoriums. He was having good success, but he was not nationally known. And that summer, he was conducting a crusade in Los Angeles. And it just so happened, one night, there was a gentleman in the audience by the name of William Randolph Hearst. Mr. Hearst was a newspaper magnate. He owned newspapers all across the country. And he was so impressed with Billy Graham that night, he sent word to all of his newspapers to write favorable articles concerning Dr. Graham. The next week, the whole country was talking about this young minister. Billy Graham came into national prominence practically overnight, all because of this one man. What happened? God sent a Barnabas across his path. That one favorable word did more for him to gain influence and credibility than he could have done on his own in his whole lifetime. And understand, our destiny is connected to other people. But the good news is, God already has them lined up. You don't have to worry. You don't have to struggle. God has all the Barnabases you're ever going to need. And the key is to just stay in faith, keep believing, knowing that God has it all planned out. A few years after Victoria and I were married, we needed some tax advice. The person that had been doing our taxes lived out of state. He wasn't familiar with a certain law in Texas, and it looked like we may owe some back taxes. We were so discouraged. We were a young couple. It was Christmas time, and we didn't know what to do. Long story short, we came across this tax attorney, and we just hit it off. He was a very good man, not only knowledgeable, but he was fun to be around. We ended up becoming close friends. He took care of that situation, and it ended up working out to our favor. Over the next few years, we didn't talk to him that often, maybe once or twice a year, but every time we did, it was like old times, like we'd been together forever. Well, several years after that, a once-in-a-lifetime business opportunity came across our path. And Victoria and I knew we wanted to pursue it, but we didn't even know where to start. So we just called our old friend, this tax attorney. And even though it wasn't in his field, he said, sure, Joel, I'll help you. And he took that deal, he negotiated it, wrote the contracts, convinced all the different parties. Before long, it all came together. I know now, looking back, that man was a divine connection. God brought him into our lives several years earlier just so we could develop that relationship with him. Had we not been familiar with him, had we not known that we could trust him, I don't think this other deal would have ever come together. The truth is, God used the tax issue to get him into our life. If we had never had that problem, we would have never met that man. What I'm saying is, sometimes when it looks negative, sometimes what looks like a disappointment is really God just getting you prepared for what He has in store. You may not see how it's going to work out right now, but if you'll stay in faith, I believe God will turn it around. He will still use that to your advantage. And I'm asking you today to believe that God is in control of your life. Believe that He's going to bring the right people at the right time. And even when it looks like a disappointment, even when your plans didn't work out, remember, God is still directing your steps. You don't know who you're going to meet, like we did, that's going to help you years down the road. Just stay in faith. And I know some of you today are single and you have a desire to get married. Let me just encourage you again, God already has the right person picked out. You may be divorced, or maybe you're a widow and you're tempted to think, oh, Joel, it's too late for me. I'll never meet anybody. No, God still has a plan. God is concerned about you. God's the one that said, it's not good for a man or a woman to be alone. God doesn't want you to go through life lonely. You may have been divorced, or maybe you even lost your spouse. But if you have a desire to meet someone, God put that in your heart, and He wants to bring the right person into your life. You may not see how it's going to happen, but let me challenge you to just keep standing in faith. You've heard me tell how I met Victoria. I walked into her mother's jewelry store to buy a battery for my watch. Think of the chances of that. There are hundreds of jewelry stores in Houston. Man, Victoria must have really been praying. I'm trying to figure out, was I her divine connection or was she my divine connection? But seriously, I know that was not a coincidence. That was God directing my steps. When you stay in faith, God will cause you to be at the right place at the right time. I think of the story of Ruth in the Bible. She was a widow. She lost her husband in a battle. And I'm sure she was discouraged. I'm sure at times she didn't think she'd ever get married again. But do you know, God was concerned about Ruth. His plan for her did not end just because something unfortunate happened. God brought another man into Ruth's life. It wasn't just anybody. His name was Boaz. He was a leader in his community. He was kind and generous. He was wealthy and good looking. And some of you today, you may be a widow, or maybe you've been through a divorce and you're thinking, oh, too bad for me. But let me tell you, God has another Boaz out there. You've got to get your hopes up and get up every morning and say, Father, I want to thank you for bringing me divine connections. Just like you did for Ruth, I believe you can cause me to be at the right place at the right time. I was reading an article about a lady that lost her husband in the war.